Thank you, Terry. I want to sketch in the Wall Street Journal. Jeff, can you make that happen?
Yeah. We're on it.
Sketch in the Wall Street Journal. That's a new goal. I'm going to write that down. Thank you, Terry. David, great. There's a few things that David had mentioned. Seats, bus, right? Good. I think I heard great. Who's he describing? Jim Collins, right? Good to great. Who here is leading to the best of their abilities? I'm not raising my hand because I am. I'm just trying to elicit a response. Who's managing to the best of their abilities? It takes a lot of effort, right? We have information coming at us so fast. I talked to somebody about that earlier, right? This information is coming at us at light speed. It almost takes a Superman approach or Superwoman approach. Superman, he takes a lot of effort to be Superman, right? He's holding down these 2 jobs. He's got a pretty good gig going over at the Daily Planet, right? He's flying around the world, okay? He's saving people. He's got a girlfriend in distress all the time, right? He's got relationship issues, right? He's got this kryptonite thing on his mind all the time. It takes a lot of effort to be Superman. It takes a lot of effort to be a leader as well, right? Especially in a time when business isn't easy. Not that that's news. Sales are declining, profits are stunted, employees are frustrated. This is a giant mess out there today. And speaking of Jim Collins, what does he say? Get the right people sitting in the right seats on the bus, as David mentioned, going in the right direction. ROE takes it a step further. I'm not going to argue with Jim Collins. I've heard him speak. One of the few business books still in hardback print 10 years later after publication. But we take it a step further. How are these people thinking and communicating in their seats? That's a pretty cool thing to think about. So as a result of miscommunication, we have disorganization, businesses going crazy at a time when the business at its most precarious. So how do we get return on investment? We say ROI, right? Return on investment. The equation of return on investment is time and money. We all know companies have invested a ton of time and a ton of money and have failed. Startups, venture capital, private equity. But there's a third dimension. Superman. There's another dimension of effort, or what we like simply to say is energy, okay? But tonight, I can't give you any more time. So much of that, right? And I'm not giving you any money. Let's get that straight right now. But I can give you more energy, or your return on energy, your ROE. But in order to describe what ROE is, it's almost sometimes easier to describe what it's not. But for the most part, ROE is faster decision making. It's teamwork. It's employee engagement. It's taking idea to action. An idea without action is a pipe dream, right? We're going to decode that in a second. It's whatever creates efficiencies within the organization. What effort you can put into something to become a better leader, become a better manager. Leader of a company, manager of a division, manager of a household. My 11-year-old takes me to task on this pretty frequently. It's working smarter, not harder. We've defined that too. But before we can see working smarter, not harder, I'm going to tell you today something that you already know. How's that for encouragement? You already know what I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to do is describe it in a way that makes a little bit more sense, okay? It brings a little more clarity and insight to a complex problem that we're facing in business every single day. But first I have to get you to see something that's been in front of you this whole time. And like I like to say, my friend R.W. says, people only see what they are prepared to see. So, a few exercises. How many people have seen this logo? A few, right? How many people see the arrow? What is the arrow pointing from and to? Have you seen that before? Amazon has everything from A to Z, right? Okay, another one. How many times have we seen this logo just today alone, right? What's between I don't know what that magic button is. That might, there we go. What do you see between there? Arrow between the E and the X, right? My son now goes, not there's the FedEx truck, it's there goes the arrow down the street. Tell me the first thing you see when you see this logo. Whoops. By the way, my wife made me do that. I sometimes get through it fast enough where people don't notice, but we're talking about observation here, so. What's the first thing you see when you see this? Red lines. I heard R-O-I back there. R-O-E, good. What's the first thing we see when we see business? ROI first, right? Generally. But what we say is if you look at ROE first, you see ROE, you define ROE first, you're going to get the ROI, okay? So I'm going to get into the meat of it here. And now there's a disclaimer on this slide. Two things will happen. It's perfectly normal, okay? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to self-assess, okay? I'm just going to throw that out there. And you know what happens when we self-assess, right? I am perfect, right? Or distorting the reality a little bit. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to start assessing the people around you. You're going to look to your left, you're going to look to your right, you're going to taking mental notes. It's perfectly normal. But right now, there's a lot of stuff going on today, right? We all came from work or the office, or we're in the office, right? There's a lot happening. We're getting ready to go home, take care of our families. Let's just kind of put all that aside for right now, and let's really focus for the next few minutes on this slide. My 6-year-old says it. My 11-year-old says it. We work this within our company. The intentions were not to publish this 4 years ago when we developed it. Over the past 4 years in my company, which I've owned for the last 15 years, it's been our secret sauce. You know, it's been our trade secret. But because of my wife sitting back there and the mounds of information all over my office, she says, you've got to get this thing organized. Get these voices out of your head. There are 3 ways in business. And to describe a way is not a permanent state. Okay? We're not labeling people. We're not saying it's not anything you can't grow beyond. We're not saying that you're stuck in this static state of thought. A way is not a label. A way is a way of thought. It's a way of thinking. And ultimately, it's a way of communicating. In business, there are 3 ways. There's a way 1, a way 2, and a way 3. Now, way 1 is the chief vision officer of the organization. They're responsible for seeing not just 1, but 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We heard Tim say earlier, I know what I'm going to do in the next 10 years. That's a way 1 thought process, okay? But not only are they supposed to see 5, 10, 20, 100 years down the road, they're supposed to have a visual acuity of being able to see everything going on around them at any given time. That's a special thought process. A way 2 is somebody who sees 12 months in advance. And they're responsible for taking a strategy and applying it to the vision. They're not the chief idea architects when it comes to the grand picture, but they are taking strategies, usually a 12-month plan, and tying it to a business objective, which we'll get to in a second. Way 3 thinkers. Way 3 thinkers are the tactics. They're the ones who's looking, they're focused most straight ahead, laser-like focus, the concentration that baffles any way 1, right? And they're the ones who are performing all the actions that are tied to the strategies that's tied to the vision, okay? But vision, I think, is another elusive term, right? You ask 10 people what vision is, you're going to get 10 different answers. What is vision? Vision in a business is like trying to describe what an instrument sounds like. Who plays an instrument? Jim, what do you play? Okay, I don't know what that is, but I can probably visualize it. Can you say guitar or something like that? But that's actually a good example, right? What does that sound like?
Like a trombone.
What's a trombone sound like?
Sounds like a cello.
Next. How do we describe sound? What does sound like? Now, you can probably show me a picture of that instrument, okay, and I can see it. Describing vision in an organization is like describing sound. It's not possible. You can't do it. The way you describe vision is you play the sound of music. You play sound of business, right? And you do that through strategy. You do that through tactics. You do that through business objectives, which we'll get to. But fortunately, as we say, wearing many different hats, sitting in many different seats, the good news is there's only 3 hats and 3 seats, okay? Vision, strategy, tactics. The way one sets the business objectives of the organization, which are tied to the strategic plan, which is tied to the tactical implementation. That's it. That's the way it works. My daughter comes home now and says, I don't think the teacher had a very good strategy today. We're doing a lot of work. We're doing a lot of tactics. I don't think she was trying to accomplish her vision today. I think I need to talk to her about strategy. My 11-year-old daughter, I swear, I wish she was here, is talking to me about vision, strategy, and tactics. So when I ask her, what do you want to be when you grow up? What am I asking her? What's your vision? I'm not asking her what she's doing. Doing is a task, right? Or we can say, idea, plan, action, right? An idea without action is a pipe dream. That's 20th century thinking. 21st century thinking, because of the age of information that we're processing every single day and the speed at which we're doing it. We're driving in the fast lane every single day going to work. An idea without plan is a pipe dream. And in the research of doing the book, to our knowledge, that has never been said before. An idea without a plan is a pipe dream. Plans bridge idea to action. The people who plan, those gifted individuals who understand strategy, can write smart strategy, tie those ideas to action. Another way of saying it. Oh, the why, the how, the what. Simon Sinek, right? Great guy. Start with why. The why of the organization. I'm in marketing, so we like to pick on Starbucks all the time. What's Starbucks' why? Good coffee, good product. What else? Experience.
Beating people's addictions.
Addiction. I like that one. That's a good one.
Highly personalized.
Personalized service, yep. Environment, community, friendship. That's their strategy. Their why, simply stated, is to be the third place. The third place between your work and your home. So when you walk into Starbucks, how do they greet you? Like your third place. Hey Jim, you're late for work today, but maybe. Hey, it's good to see you, so-and-so at home, right? It's to be that third place. Now all their strategies are tied to that why. All their business objectives are tied to that vision. The what is the coffee. Gas station sells coffee. You get coffee anywhere, right? But they've tied it to their why. Why, how, what. Some of you have heard me speak, and you might be tired of the story, but it's honestly one of my favorites. They're building a cathedral in Milan. Who can finish the story for me? They're building a cathedral in Milan, and they ask the bricklayer, what are you doing? I'm laying brick. They go to the next bricklayer, what are you doing? I'm building a brick wall. What's the vision? They go to the third bricklayer, what are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. Speaking of call centers, what are you doing? I'm answering the phone. Why are you answering the phone? Because it's ringing? That's a what. What's the why? Customer service is the #1 business objective of our organization, and we're going to move it from X to Y, a number and a time, in this period of time. That's a pretty cool thing when you can take a what and tie it directly to a why. That's pretty special. That's starting to play the music, right? That's starting to say, now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay? Whoops. Have you ever heard of the big picture? Did you know what the big picture was? Or if you're really passionate, somebody will come in and say, if not just the big picture, but can you see the bigger picture? Right? That's somebody with a lot of passion. Who has the most passion, by the way? And if we could graph the passion curve here, what would it look like? But what is every way one? What is every leader of an organization dreams of waking up to? What is the passion curve they want to look like in their organization? Yeah, to go up, right? Not flatline. I'd take that, but to go up. If the way threes, the what's, the action officers, the people laying brick, the people who are engaged in their job can tie those tactics to a why and has the same amount of passion coming to work every day, that's employee engagement, right? So the big picture, those are the things that keep me up at night. What's that big picture thing? Okay, now we've identified kind of the characteristics of both the way one, the way two, and the way three, right? Now what we have to do is go to the second dimension. The second dimension is tying each one of these ways together within the organization, okay? I think we have broken lines of communication. I think our lines are crossed. Is that another one we've heard before? Have said or maybe heard? The ways are connected with arrows. And the arrows go in these directions. Way ones communicate to twos, two to threes, three to back to twos, and twos to one. Can a one communicate to a three? No. Why?
Different language.
We don't have that much time, but why? Right? Why? Passion, energy, ideas, outside the box thinking, bigger picture, talking about the cathedral when I'm trying to build a wall. We're trying to lay brick. A one communicates to a three by either A, communicating through the two, or reverting to way two thinking. And in small organizations, startups, I was talking to the cupcake girl back there. I forgot your name, I'm sorry. In startup organizations, we're sitting in all these seats at the same time, right? So we're bouncing from these different ways of thought every single day. It's exhausting. It takes a lot of effort to know when to think as you're supposed to think throughout. It's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to do that. But I have this imaginary three-side apparatus on my desk. When I'm supposed to be thinking strategy, Terry, don't say anything, because I'm not good at that. When I'm supposed to be thinking strategy, I'm looking at a way two thought process. I'm not out here in idea land, and I'm not down here doing the work. And don't say anything, Nicole, because I can't do the work either, probably. So do you hear this a lot? Blah, 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 yak, yak, yak. We nod along like somebody, we know what they're saying. We walk into the room and say, hey, can I brainstorm with you? And we all go, sure, absolutely. What does that mean? Creative? What does it mean to brainstorm? To brainstorm is when you come into the room with one idea and leave with 15 ideas or 1,500 ideas and no plan. That's brainstorming, right? But what if I come in and say, hey, I want to bounce an idea off you? I don't want to come to you, David, with my idea and leave with 15 ideas. I want to come to you with an idea and leave with a plan. But not only do I want to leave with a plan, I want to leave with a plan that's been validated by a team of subject matter experts who are performing the tasks who can say, yes, that idea can be done. Or, no, that idea can't be done, but if we tweak the strategy or tweak the tactics or bring in more subject matter experts, we can implement that idea. So just simply by communicating the right way and defining these crazy business buzzwords that we've been able to generate over the years to sound maybe more smart or what they teach us in school or whatever the case might be, but we're able to decipher what the true meaning is, connecting the right people in the right ways, okay? Broken arrows, broken lines of communication. FedEx arrow, okay? Amazon.com arrow. These are the things that keep me up at night. What's the box? Let's think inside the box. We say that all the time in our company. Let's think inside the box. That doesn't sound fun, right? What is this outside the box stuff, right? That's the box. Coming up with an inside the box idea is any idea that can directly be tied to a business objective, a strategic plan, or to take 5 tasks and knock them down to 3. The only time we need outside the box ideas is when the inside the box ideas aren't working. So if you can imagine business objectives being set, which are generally 5 to 10 in any organization, regardless of size, generally never over 10. And if we work with clients that have over 10, we try to narrow it down to less than 10. Okay? So if you can imagine, for the sake of argument, say 10 business objectives set for the entire organization, how many strategies are tied to one of or all of those 10? 20, 50, 100? Definitely more than 10, right? How many tactics can be done every single day? What if all the thousands of tactics that are being done within an organization are tied to a strategic plan and ultimately tied to one of those business objectives? That's inside the box. That's the box. Outside the box is when the way one walks in one day and heard a speaker, read a book, right? Wants to try something new. Let's try social media, I've heard about that, right? And then all of a sudden the way twos are designing the strategy around the marketing, also being bombarded with a lot of passion, a lot of ideas that are outside the box because we aren't moving the needle on this business result. Okay? I love questions. Any questions so far? Clear as mud. The third dimension to business, after we've identified the characteristics of the three ways of thinking, the second dimension is connecting each one of these ways together. The third dimension is connecting the right way with the right results. This has been the single greatest weapon in our organization from a sales perspective. We see opportunities left and right simply as a result of taking the right person and connecting with the right results. We've taken $10,000 deals and turned them into $150,000 deals. Let me retract. My wife has taken $10,000 deals and because she's just simply connected the right way with the right result. If you try to take away one and connect them with a tactic, what's going to happen? They're going to get bored real fast. But if I can take away one and tie them to one of two results, people development and business results. That's the only two results that we have found that a way one will listen to. But if you don't know how your product, the tactic, is tied to the business results of the organization or accomplish the business objectives, how can you have that conversation when you sell to way threes all day long? But if the way threes are connected and they know they're building cathedrals and they can communicate to you in a way they know that this product is tied to this campaign, that's tied to this business objective, the information that the way three product seller is getting is so much more valuable. And when you're sitting at the table selling to a way three, it's completely different than sitting at the table selling to a way two. Because if you take that sales plan into a two, it doesn't work. When you get a seat at that table, you're talking about campaigns, you're talking about strategies, you're talking about what your product's going to do, not about the product. It's not about if it turns right or left or if it's blue or green. It's about what your product does to the strategy of that particular organization. And ultimately, if you can have this conversation with the way one, that the product is tied to the objective, that's a special conversation. That's adding value in a very commoditized business. Okay? So, the third dimension is connecting the way two to people development and strategic results. The way three, personal development and tactical results. The common denominator here for return on energy is personal development. And I believe if you value personal development, you'll value people development. If you value personal development, you're going to put mentoring over managing. Mentor over manage is the way three. Mentor over leading is the way one. So if I value personal development, I'm going to value mentorship. And if I value mentorship, I'm going to try to build the skill level up of anybody that I'm either managing or leading. And there's a huge gulf between the two, right? How many studies do we read or books that we read talk about leadership or talk about management? Management is way two thinking. Leadership is way one thinking. Leaders manage the people, leaders lead the people who are writing the strategies, who are managing the people doing the work. Let's define micromanagement. I love that one. That's one of my favorites. A micromanager is the one who's doing the work, not the one managing the people doing the work. It's really that simple. We can read 25 books on micromanagement, how to manage our time and everything else, but the fact remains that you have to write smart plans, manage the plans that the people follow to do the work. That's a full-time job, just writing and managing strategic plans. When you have to then jump in and do the work too, that becomes difficult. But if you're in a small organization and you're growing, you have to bounce between those ways of thought all the time. It's only larger organizations, and regardless of size, this applies. It's only in larger organizations that you get to sit in that seat for any longer, more extended period of time. But if we were to open up, as I mentioned, if we were to open up this red box down here, we'd see two things: mentoring and leading. It's really that simple. If we were to open up this box, what would we see? Mentoring over managing, okay? So when I read articles of all kinds, and people are talking about leadership and management, objectives, and strategies, and plans, and ideas, and actions, and all that stuff, this is the information graphic that's in my head. This is how I'm processing all the information. So when somebody comes to me and says, what are we going to do today? I'm thinking, you need some action, right? Or if somebody comes to you and say, how are we going to do that? And it's your vice president of marketing. How are we going to do this? Well, you're the one writing the strategy. And people sit in the wrong seats all the time. People walk around with the wrong business title on their business cards all the time. But within a few minutes, you can talk to somebody and really know if you're dealing with and I'm going to steal my thunder on the next few slides, if you're dealing with a way 3 thinker sitting in a way 2 seat. That's a fun game. That's vision, and that's a key element, which is a triangle. We'll get to in a minute. Where does the President of the United States sit in the cabinet meetings? Or I should change this and say, where does the Donald sit in the boardroom? In the center of the table? In the middle, right? Is he sitting at the end of the table? He's sitting in the middle of the table. And he's flanked by either the President or the Donald. He's flanked by his closest advisors. And across from the President, who sits? The Vice President, flanked by their closest advisors. King Arthur's Round Table, okay? They're flanked by their closest advisors. The advisors to the advisors are sitting at the end of the table, okay? Therefore, we're starting to develop and design a completely new organizational chart. Now, the traditional organizational chart, the one that you have in your mind right now, the top down, all the boxes, nobody likes to see themselves in the bottom box. Okay? They don't. That's why we don't use top-down in ROE at all. It's left to right, it's side by side. That's very important. We're trying to get employee engagement. I don't want to put somebody at the bottom, okay? So this is setting up the new organizational chart. The 21st century organizational chart looks like that. Imagine if I'd have put that up on the first slide. That's the 21st century organizational chart. This is the operational organizational chart. Now, the FDA requires organizational charts for pharmaceutical companies so they can know what butt to kick. Okay? But for the most part, this is an operational organizational chart. So as you can see, the way one is flanked by their closest advisors. The vision triangle goes out through any organization. And if I'm sitting at the top of this mountain right here, which is the only time we use hierarchy to describe and to prove a point. When I'm at the top, I can see all the way around, right? If I'm sitting at the top of the mountain. But if I'm at base camp, I don't have the same visual perception as the one sitting at the top. It's physics, right? But the people sitting on the side of the mountain halfway up can see about 180 degrees, north, south, all points in between. But they can't see on the other side. But if you line up your way twos, like the telephone game we used to play as children, the lady wore a red dress to church, and it comes back around something completely different. If you line up your way twos to talk about the vision of the organization, to be able to describe to you what the 5 business objectives are, would they be able to do it? That's important. So as a result of this, the ones communicate to twos, twos communicate to threes. Twos have bigger teams than way ones. Managers have bigger teams than leaders. Direct reports, strategic retreats, all this has meaning. So, what happened? Let's take the sales department. Sorry, Jim, I should have put technology in here. I thought about you after that. It's very important, trust me. I was trying to keep it simple. But you can really kind of slice this pizza up, you know, the big pepperoni in the middle, as my son calls it, in any different organization that you want to, okay? All the divisions are important. But in the sales department, I have a way 3 thinker sitting in a way 2 seat. What's the sales strategy going to be like for this organization? How's the 3 going to get along? How's the sales manager, vice president of sales, director of sales, however you want to call this, how are they going to get along with the team? Best friends, right? I'm sitting in the seat, I'm going, I don't understand it. You know, my vice president of sales is out with the guys all the time. They get along fantastic. They all think the same way, but we have no sales plan. But I can't get my vice president of sales to get along with my VP of operations or my VP of finance. Right people, right seats, thinking the right way. Then I have this person who just stuck around long enough, Peter principle, to get the job. And were they mentored by a qualified way 2 to ultimately sit in the way 2 seat? Is this person going to mentor these people very well? Is this person going to mentor the next way 2 sitting in that seat? ROE over ROI. ROE powers ROI. It's mentor over manage. It's mentor over lead, okay? I'm going to come back to that. Scary, scary stuff. One of my favorite topics is the ROE gap, okay? The gap analysis. Where I am in my skill set today is not going to be where I might need to be tomorrow, okay? If you're standing on the tracks and you're going in the right direction, you could get run over if you just stand there, right? Heard that saying before? You might be going in the right direction, but if you just stand there, okay, you're going to get run over. In order to grow a company from startup phase to infancy to go-go to adolescence, it's just like the life cycle we can predict as humans, okay? We're born, we go through our terrible twos, we go through a lot of growing pains. Organizations do the same thing. In order to get from one stage to the next, everyone in the organization has to close their gap. They have to close their skill sets. Because if I'm sitting in a way 2 seat and I haven't developed myself to develop strategic plans for marketing that are tied to business objectives, and I got a team of people that I'm mentoring and managing, there's a negative gap, or the gap is too wide. So if I can close the gap with everyone in the organization, what's going to happen is I'm going to move from one stage to the next. And it's much more fun in business to be at this stage than it is at this stage. Enterprise, entrepreneurship. Who are some of the companies who's very stable right now? Apple. Wow. There's a stable company. Innovation. Ideas, right? Research in motion. Premature aging, they might be close to death. But what's interesting about research in motion, just as a side note, do you know they have co-CEOs? Research in motion have co-CEOs. How do you have 2-way ones? Are they really aligned so much in their vision that they can lead the organization for a long-term period of time? They were just asked to step down 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. General Motors, Ford maybe. They could benefit from the startup idea process. When ideas run like water, there are no boundaries to the ideas and the passion, the energy, and the excitement that entrepreneurs bring to the table. It's only in the enterprise stages that things get kind of, they slow down a little bit. So the ROE gap is where you are in the business life cycle, where the gap is from your employees. And when we close that gap, we move to the next stage. And when we move to the next stage, what do we have to do? Do the analysis all over again, right? Because how many CEOs of startup companies are the CEOs 10 years later when they've grown to $50 or $100 million? Not very many, right? It's a completely different skill set in running a $10 million company over a $1 million or $100 million over a $10 million. When we consistently and constantly close this gap, not just of the gap of the people we work with, but our own gap as leaders, putting all the energy and effort to be better leaders, to be better managers, to mentor people, to be better mentors, better managers when we get to that next stage of the organization. If you remember from the ROE gap and the ROE infographic at the bottom, there was this loop, right? The third dimension in business. It's just not one-dimensional, it's just not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. The bottom of that ROE infographic is the third dimension of business, and what we call is the ROE loop, okay? The loop was that the people development from the way one is tied to the people development of the way two, mentor over lead. If I have a manager managing me as a subject matter expert in the field of my tactic because I'm a way three thinker, then I want to be mentored over managed, okay? And if I'm a qualified way three thinker, an expert with my tool, when you're taking off at DFW and you see the guy out there working on the wing, I hope he's an SME. I hope he's a subject matter expert with the tool that he's using. I hope he understands that it's about safety. It's not about fixing the wing. It's about the why, not the what. Way twos understand that, and they invest in people to close their ROE skill gaps, to become subject matter experts in the field. But if I get that way two job one day and I am an SME in the field, I have to resist micromanaging and manage the people who are doing the work so I can mentor over manage. See how the process works? Okay? So if I'm an SME with my tool and I'm performing better tactical results that is tied to strategic results and the campaigns are working, we're moving the needles, what am I going to get? Better business results. So the ROE loop is taking leading, mentoring, which is the way one people development. We have to develop ourselves as much as we develop other people, which is key. We have a people development box with the way twos, okay? And then we have personal development, which is key in the common denominator with every way of thought in the entire organization. But it's only at the latter stage of the loop that we start focusing on results. We haven't talked about results yet. So in business, where do we draw the line? I meant literally, I guess. That's where we draw the line. So ROI is 90% of our focus, okay? But it's only half the equation, or I would like to say 40% of the equation, because 60% of business sits here. 60% of business is sometimes we like to say the soft side, but it's about mentoring and leading and mentoring and managing and investing in yourself, investing in the people around you to become subject matter experts with the tools that they use. So when they sit in the seat one day and they've been mentored the right way, they're not going to be doing the work anymore. They're going to be managing the people who are doing the work, putting mentoring over managing. Is it starting to make sense now? 40% of the business sits here. But it's 90+% of our time. 90%, if not maybe 100% of our time, is focusing on the results when it's only 40% of business. So 60% of business sits on the side that's pretty clearly defined using return on energy. So when you personally develop yourself, you're developing other people, and you put the right things in the right boxes, it starts to make sense. So I guess my question is, wherever you are in your careers or your organizations, committees, church, PTA organizations, coach of the softball team. Speaking of coaches, who's the way one of the Dallas Cowboys? Terry loves this question. Who's the way one? Jerry Jones? On Sunday, who's the way one? Right. I guess we should use another example, especially after the Super Bowl. The head coach is the way one on Sunday when it comes to the field. The quarterback is the way two, right? Then you have all your different offense, defense, special teams, etc. But Jerry Jones is the way one of the Dallas Cowboys, right? Pretty clear. But Jerry Jones is also sitting in another seat, right? What's that seat? General manager, right? General manager is what? A way two role, a micromanager. He would get on the field if he could, right? That would be good. So Jerry Jones is sitting in two seats. He's a way one and a way two in an organization who's supposed to apply vision, but also a strategic role, a key strategic role in the organization, which is the general manager, right? Now, in the context of the NFL, is Jerry Jones the way one? No. The commissioner of the NFL is the way one. So now the way one, the Dallas Cowboys as a whole, is a strategic function of the NFL. Mark Cuban, that's a good one. He's such a way one thinker, he's such a visionary, and he's sitting in a strategic role of the Dallas Mavericks that he's probably crazy and innovative enough to go out and start his own league. Because his vision's not aligned to the NBA's vision. That's a pretty cool thing. So when we're reading these funny articles or we're seeing these interviews, we can process this information completely differently because we're saying, hey, he's a way one. And the strategy that he's designed for the Dallas Mavericks is so innovative, it's being copied throughout the NBA. It's being copied now in other sports. I'd love for him to take over another team because I'd like to see this kind of replicated all over again. Not because I want to see him win, if it's not my team, but I like to see that process play out. It's very, very cool. So that's the ROE infographic. It's very simple. And I get requests for this. The book's over here. If you want me to email it to you, I'd be glad to. Tweet me. So, last few slides. We came up with these. We found these after we wrote the book. Okay? So, details create the big picture. Would you read that differently now than what you did before? Details create the big picture. Tactics are tied to the strategy. Big picture is the strategy and the tactics. He didn't say details will create the bigger picture, right? It's the big picture. A futurist, fascinating guy. You've got to think about the big things while you're doing the small things, so all the small things go in the right direction. You've got to think about the big things, big picture, bigger picture, while you're doing the small things, the tactics, so everything goes in the right direction, so you're accomplishing the vision of the organization. Who's going to argue with this guy down here, right? Individual commitment to a group effort, that's what makes a team work, company work, a society work, a civilization work. So if you want to brainstorm, it's okay to balance the room with 1s, 2s, and 3s. That's the best time to brainstorm because somebody could say, that's impossible. I'm never going to get the wing on the plane if we do it that way. But if you balance the room and not just have a bunch of creatives, a bunch of way one thinkers, a bunch of way twos, you're going to get a much better execution and much better strategy. So I hope I've been able to describe that ROE powers ROI. Okay? And secondly, I hope I've been able to say that, or describe that it is the ultimate way to think and communicate. Think first, see your arrows, understand who you're talking to, connect them to the right result, and then communicate once we've had the observation of seeing where those arrows are. Okay? And it goes for your own arrows as well. So I got 3 minutes, so if there's any questions, I'd love to take them. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time.